Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jean Bora. I'm the Executive Director with the Alberta Community Crime Prevention Association, commonly known as ACPA. In May of this year, we will be hosting our annual Crime Prevention Conference in Edmonton, Alberta. Our dates, May the 5th through the 7th. In anticipation of this exciting event, we are hosting a series of interviews with our conference presenters. Today, I will be interviewing Edmonton Police Sergeant Ryan Ferry. On May the 5th, Sergeant Ferry will be one of 5 presenters involved in a workshop entitled Breaking the Cycle, Addressing Gang and Gun Violence in Alberta Through Awareness, Prevention, and Intervention. We're delighted that you could join us today, Ryan. Please give us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. A little bit about myself. I'm presently a 20-year police member with the Edmonton Police Service. I've been working in the gangs and public safety space for about 18 of those 20 years. I'm presently working in a pilot project within our organized crime branch in an intelligence coordination position. And just prior to that, I was working as a sergeant of one of our gang suppression teams. So that's a uniform, overt gang team that encounters gang members and associates out in the community and on the street. I'm interested in all things gang, all topics, or all segments of this topic. I'm currently in the prevention space as well, and the diversion space, and gang exiting is something that I'm passionate about as well. So I'm pleased to be able to sit and speak to a captive audience and provide people with some understanding about the subject.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the Gang and Gun workshop has garnered a lot of interest at the conference. We just did a committee meeting last night, conference committee meeting. And yeah, you guys there's a lot of people very, very interested in it. So no, thank you very much. So can you tell us a little bit about the focus of your presentation at the conference?
Certainly. What I'm going to be focusing on is to provide an introduction to the pathways of gang participation, which lead to perhaps a high-level overview of the gang landscape here in the Edmonton capital region. And we can talk about how that landscape or the entire gang spectrum interacts with the larger trends across North America.
Excellent. So it's, I'm just curious, does Edmonton Police Service work with community groups to augment your knowledge regarding gang activity?
Yes, definitely. So at multiple levels of the journey of people participating or affected by gangs, there are a number of community groups that there's an intersection in what the community at large is experiencing relative to the gangs and gang members and gang participants, and then particular community groups that come together that are really civilian stakeholders in this gang prevention, crime prevention landscape. So we have formal and informal relationships with community groups. Our formal relationships with people that are in community groups stem almost primarily in the gang exit space and okay. The space where folks from our houseless and homeless shelters, people that are working with a lot of our troubled youth, so community corrections and our child social services. All of those larger agencies, we have a formalized relationship where we check in with them. They're able to come to us in organized crime branch to talk about the things that they're seeing. The intent behind that formal relationship is one born out of the realization that by the time somebody hits the police radar, once we have somebody offending, or once we have somebody who's operating loudly enough or overtly enough to catch the attention of police, then
Yeah.
perhaps it's too late to layer on any sort of prevention or intervention sort of strategies. So our desire and request to work with these larger agencies and the agencies that are living and working and encountering these guys daily,
Yeah.
is that they're probably going to see warning signs way before we ever do. And there's opportunity for early engagement and reputation building between what our efforts are and the community outreach or community groups. The stakeholders in that space really require some backup and some solidarity, and the police require solidarity and some legitimacy in that world, I guess, because if there's forces that are sort of diametrically opposed, and the cops are regarded as a bunch of heavy-handed morons, and the community groups are equally as unfairly regarded as the hugs and high fives teams,
Right.
then the opportunity for synergy and matching sort of mission
Yeah.
is really harmful and detrimental to the overall collective efforts. The informal relationships that we maintain are on behalf of me and every other police officer that we have working in this branch, where we have previous relationships with people that we've encountered throughout our policing career. Generally, they'll come from my previous postings or other investigators that are working in maybe a volunteer capacity or some sort of like personal interest in either individuals or groups that are working in that same space and exist in that same space. So we always try to foster that personal connection and that informal relationship as well, because you never know when those relationships are going to be able to shed light on understanding or opportunity for timely intervention. So that's the landscape, or that's the sort of big picture and how we interact with community groups.
Yeah, and it's interesting because since the website went out for the conference, I got a call a couple of weeks ago from an organization in Edmonton asking, well, first of all, they were going to send some of their people to the workshop, and she wanted to know if there was anybody that she could talk to with regards to coming out and speaking to their children. So I just passed it on to the initiative, and they dealt with it. So yeah, so it's very interesting. And yeah, thank you for telling us that.
Sure.
When you speak at the conference this coming May, will you be sharing some tactics that EPS utilize in dealing with gang activities, and maybe just give us a brief example of a tactic that EPS uses?
Yeah, the word tactic is a sensitive one, because police techniques and tactics are something that remains shielded from the public consumption, but tactics in terms of what our strategies are. So we can talk about at a high level, we talk about the EPS guns and gangs strategy. So that's consumable on our website. There's been a lot of hoo-ha that's been released via media releases, and so in the crafting of this gang strategy that we follow, it's a 3-year gang strategy, and we'll look at the landscape in another year, and we'll set out an additional 3-year strategy. We try to fully map out what our responses are going to be to gang membership and gang presence and gang violence. And presently, our guns and gang strategy and this violence reduction initiative focuses on 3 main pillars in this gang space. So one is a thing called focused deterrence, and I'll get into that a little bit more. A second pillar of that strategy is investigative excellence. And a third strategy is youth diversion. The second and the third pillar in that strategy have really largely been outside of my hands for quite some time. The young person engagement strategy is a strategy that fosters and encourages young people to make connections in their community or within their school or within their extracurriculars. And the driving vision behind that, and the philosophy behind young people the engagement and youth diversion is that if we can foster connections outside of these antisocial kind of bad actor burgeoning gang groups, then we have academic and scientific evidence that shows that kids are much less likely to participate in anything gang if they've got a connection to something larger than themselves, or something with meaning beyond just their buddies that they hang out with down the street, or these passing transitory relationships, in the sense that crime reduction and all those criminogenic factors being addressed early on in even childhood. Crime reduction is gang reduction. So if you take somebody that is has a propensity or a proclivity towards any sort of crime participation, oftentimes their skill sets and their experiences will shape and mold or dictate what kind of crime they get involved in. And if you can stem them early enough away from that criminal participation, then certainly that can result in a reduction in gang participation down the road. The investigative excellence segment of our guns and gang strategy is an effort on behalf of the police service to really pay close attention to the requirements to bring an investigation to a successful conclusion and navigate it through the ever increasing difficult court process. There's a huge emphasis on not police accountability, but value and impact of the efforts that we're undertaking. And so whether we spend $1 million in manpower and time and effort and energy into an investigation that bears no fruit, or if we can be good stewards of the investigation from start to finish and work collaboratively with our partners in the Crown and in the judiciary, and work on maintaining, I guess, an investigative standard and maintaining best practices across and paying attention to what's going on across the country is something that is we're obligated to do. The tactic or the strategy of focused deterrence is what I've specialized in and what I'm a strong advocate for. And it goes beyond just investigating somebody or charging somebody. The purpose of something called focused deterrence is to place the responsibility of exhibiting pro-social behavior back in the hands of the identified person. And so what it becomes is the police reaching out to an identified person that is on the pathway to gang participation. Maybe they've trafficked drugs, or they're on their way in to becoming a full-fledged gang member, or maybe they've been a target or a victim of gang related or gang motivated crime at various stages in their gang participation. The police service, in concert with some of our community stakeholders, seek to reach that person in a very direct engagement style, and the script is variable depending on who you're talking to. But the idea, the driving central tenets behind it are: we know that you're involved. We want to end your involvement. We are very overt in telling you the expectation is that you cease and desist your involvement. And the caveat to all of that is that as soon as these folks are able to exhibit pro-social behavior, the police attention will be diverted elsewhere. There's plenty of people we can focus on. And then the other element of that is an offer for assistance in exiting that gang life and that criminology, or sorry, that criminal sort of behavior. And so finding and trying to really drill down to what the motivations are, if there are difficulties in integrating back into society, if there's literacy problems or addiction issues or mental health, it's on the state to offer up assistance in those deficiencies or in these identified gaps. That is probably the most difficult element of what focused deterrence is all about, because if you don't offer, and it's just as very, very simply referred to as the carrot and the stick, or the pulling levers strategy. If we as the state can't offer immediate and comprehensive assistance in exiting that lifestyle, then our efforts are reduced and minimized, and the efficacy goes down, because when somebody needs help and they're prepared to acknowledge that they need this help or this assistance or whatever, it doesn't really benefit to make them wait until three Tuesdays from now. We need to be able to find a way to get those resources to them. And the other side of that is the overt enforcement and the police attention and the reduction in police discretion when we encounter that individual and anybody else who's supporting them, surrounding them. So the pitch gets made to not only the offender, but to their family members and their friends and potentially other gang members, their cousins, whatever it becomes. And we say it quite plainly: if you are found to be participating in this gang life still, and there's opportunity for enforcement, then that enforcement will very likely come to be realized by you and everybody else who supports you. It's got to be mindfully applied, because we can certainly be overzealous in it, and we can turn people away from us, and we can alienate entire segments of the population that are trying their best to help. It's a very delicate balance, and we try to stay on the right side of that equation. But it's tricky, and it's labor intensive, and it's a path that is laden with a lot of risk for the police service, because again, we're putting police members in a position where they've got to talk to these guys, and do so not at the end of a rifle while hiding behind a tank, and not through a formal email. This is face-to-face conversation that needs to happen, and there's an elevated risk of flashpoints in those interactions, but it's the most effective element of gang work, and it's probably the most satisfying once it works, which is hard to come by, but when it does, it's great.
And it's a skill, it's like being firm but fair, like as a parent, right? Getting the point across, but yet not alienating, not creating the dust up that that's very interesting. Oh, I could listen to you all day, Ryan. Seriously. So we realize, we understand that Edmonton is a big city, but gang activity is in the smaller centers. Does it gravitate into bigger centers like Edmonton? What kind of happens with that? Or is there a very distinct divide, smaller urban, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So in the Edmonton context, I'll be able to speak very, very pointedly on this. Is
Yeah.
that the largest driver of profit and commerce that occurs in the gang landscape in the Edmonton capacity is drug trafficking. Drug trafficking drives the vast majority of gang activity. It is very often the root of a lot of our gang violence is either competition for or retribution because of things that are done or not done surrounding the drug trade.
Yeah.
There are certainly other pathways of commodities trafficking and commerce that these gang groups participate in. But by and large, it's very, very deeply ingrained with the drug distribution and drug sales. And so as drug demand grows or wanes in certain communities, that oftentimes will dictate or be a corollary or a co-variable in gang presence that we see in smaller communities.
Yeah.
That and prostitution, to be honest with you. Prostitution isn't like it was 10 years ago, certainly not 20 or 30 years ago. A lot of prostitution is facilitated and arranged online and via technology, and so we don't have girls who have to walk on the street and stick out like a thorn in a beautiful rose garden. It could be so much more clandestine and under the cover of computer to computer or phone to phone. And so when we have demand in certain communities, individuals are always willing to fill that demand. It's just going to be a matter of price point and availability. So when we see gang activity that occur in small towns, there is certainly an element of it being driven by those commodities and people protecting their business interests as they shepherd or steward those commodities into those communities. Rarely do we see personal vendettas that are homegrown in these communities. Most of these smaller communities, people know each other. Most of these smaller communities, we have the benefit and the sort of downstream effects of the social contract. The only caveat or exception to that is our Indigenous-based street gangs, who are experiencing so many other markers of community in crisis, and there's pre-existing trauma and addiction and mental health issues, and sometimes, not presently, but sometimes in our past, we've had, I guess, standing feuds that exist between our Indigenous-based street gangs that flash up in whatever community they happen to be in. So we're talking about people from very, very low on the socioeconomic scale, driven by poverty and a destitute sort of outlook on life with not a whole lot of options. That's where we see this, I guess we call it indiscriminate violence based on who you associate with. And I represent purple and you represent brown, and those two don't mix, and we have violence. So that's what we're seeing out of the smaller kind of bedroom communities around Edmonton and certainly across northern Alberta. Edmonton presently, and has been for quite some time, a net exporter of a lot of our drugs and illegal commodities for the whole of northern Alberta and into the Northwest Territories and the Yukon. Edmonton is a distribution point
Right, right.
for a lot of drugs and guns and contraband that comes up from the United States or from the ports.
Yeah.
And so Edmonton subjects are certainly very, very present in all of these smaller communities. And Edmonton larger kind of gang groups or criminal organizations have the capacity and, for lack of a better term, manpower available to them
Right.
to export those commodities to those communities. And so we certainly do have Edmonton-based gangsters present inside smaller communities
Yeah.
over into Saskatchewan
Oh,
and certainly into BC as well.
wow.
That seems to be the trend that has been holding steady for quite some time.
That is so interesting. Yeah, like I say, wow, I've got a ton of questions, but I
I
will
can imagine.
I seriously, yeah, but I will wait till the workshop. In fact, no. So, in closing, would you mind sharing a success story that of someone that successfully withdrew from gang life, or?
Yeah, certainly. This is one that I personally carry with me. It is something from early in my gang career within the police service. So part of what our focus and our function was early in my uniform overt gang suppression efforts.
Mhm,
There's a section in the Alberta Gaming and Liquor Cannabis Act
mhm,
that it's section 69.1 of the Gaming, Liquor, and Cannabis Act. And it
mhm.
states that gang members, when found in a liquor license premise, they can be ejected from that liquor license premise
Oh,
in order to
oh,
preserve public safety and
right.
reduce gang presence inside these sometimes volatile, vulnerable kind of spaces. We don't really have gang infested neighborhoods where we have controlled blocks of residences.
Right.
Most of our gang members are very, very mobile and they're fluid, but they come together in these spaces. A lot of times, bars and nightclubs, and violence occurs in those spaces, and it's a higher population density, and
Yeah,
people have alcohol intoxication and lights and sound,
yeah.
and it all exacerbates the problem. And so early in my efforts, we were very, very focused on those liquor license premises in stamping down or tamping down gang presence. And there was one individual, I can refer to him by his first name, is Adam.
Mhm.
He was on the pathway to becoming a Hells Angels member. And the Hells
Oh,
Angels are regarded by the Edmonton Police Service as an outlaw motorcycle gang. They'll
yeah,
dispute that fact, and if one of them gets a hold of this recording, then
yeah,
they'll probably say some terrible things about me, and that's fine.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
For
yeah,
the purposes of what we're doing, we consider them to be a gang, and they fit the definition as laid out by the Alberta government.
yeah,
And so this young man, Adam, who was on the pathway to being a Hells Angels member, he
yeah.
was uh, constantly in the presence of other Hells Angels members that would attend these venues. Adam was instrumental in exhibiting and enacting violent actions against people that got in their way inside these bars and nightclubs. I have video of him sucker punching people and just being an incredibly violent, incredibly menacing person.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
we interacted with Adam probably 100 times in the span of maybe 12 to 18 months. And our
mhm.
persistence with Adam and everybody else that he was with, you can imagine if you see my ugly face on a regular basis and I ruin your Friday night, and it certainly becomes antagonistic,
Yeah,
and there's friction there, and they all hate me, and that's fine.
yeah,
But our message and our delivery to Adam every time is that, well, you're scaring people and you're a risk to public safety and you're a
yeah,
danger to people, but also there's a danger to you. Gang participation, this life isn't easy, and we're just as worried about you and your safety as we
yeah,
are everybody else's. And
Yeah.
so we have an obligation to protect you from you and your choices.
Yeah.
So that carried on for a period of time. And what ended up happening was Adam, as abrasive as he was, and as prone to violence as he was generating bad blood within the Hells Angels as
Oh,
well. There were members that didn't like him. And what
oh,
transpired was somebody decided to have Adam killed.
oh,
And this is a matter of public record, and it's been disclosed in the courts. And so um, a member of what's called a support club. These are motorcycle clubs that have loyalty and fealty to the Hells Angels.
mm,
They are believed to be involved in directed activities on behalf of the larger club. Um, a member of this support club was given direction or some sort of permission or a mission to kill Adam. And so this individual, his name is Jason Nielsen,
yeah,
um, arranged to meet Adam for sale of some steroids and some prescription medication, I believe.
yeah.
Adam pulled up in his own car, and Jason pulled out a gun and shot Adam in the face. And I don't mean to talk about violence or glorify it or be sort of objectify it or
Yeah,
use it for shock value, but that is
yeah,
exactly what happened. Adam is such a big, strong guy that he was able to absorb this blow. The gun jammed and had a failure, so Jason couldn't shoot Adam any further. Adam held his face together and
right.
ran away from that location. And
Yeah.
he sought out help. He went to a convenience store close by. Police
Yeah.
were called. Ambulance was called. He was rushing into surgery. Miraculously, the bullet path was through his front teeth, over top of his tongue, and out the side of his neck and jaw,
Oh,
but it missed everything critical.
what
But
a lucky.
the intent was clear that they were trying to
Yeah.
kill him. And so I was informed that when police investigators showed up to Adam's bedside and wanted to obviously get his version of what the story was, he
Mhm.
said, "I'll only talk to Ryan Ferry. I will
Oh,
tell my story to Ryan Ferry because I know that he has consistently been giving and delivering this message of we care for your safety as much as we care for anybody else's."
yeah.
And we've been honest with him. We've been relentless and a thorn in his side, like a mosquito or a bad
Yeah.
rash. But we've
Yeah.
been honest and forthright with him every single time. And so I attended the hospital that day and the next. I spoke to the family. Adam cooperated fully in the police investigation. He
Yeah.
gave a videotaped interview. He promised and committed to showing up and providing testimony in court. He
Yeah.
showed up in court, and
Yeah.
Jason Nielsen was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 20 years in prison. And
Wow.
Adam is not a Hells Angels member. Adam faces his own challenges as he goes through his life.
Yeah.
And there's always that specter of maybe violence will come back around or whatever. But I view that as not only a successful police investigation,
Yeah.
but a diversion from
Yeah.
somebody who would otherwise have had a life of hardship and violence, which is what we see with gang participation. You're much more likely to be exposed to violence and targeted in violence than had you gone and pursued a hobby of uh, juggling or some sport or
Yeah.
some art or whatever. So that's a success story I like to carry
Um,
with me.
that's
And I'm certainly proud of
yeah.
his
Yeah.
courage in those moments
No.
to speak truth to it.
Oh, that is amazing. Oh my goodness, Ryan. That is amazing. Yeah. Yeah. There again. Whoa, lots of questions. Lots of questions.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I do. So I would just again like to thank you for joining us today. This has been so um enlightening. And like I say, I've got 1,000 questions. I'll be sure to be in your workshop. But I would like to thank you again for showing up, for agreeing to the interview. You can tell there's a lot of passion and a lot of commitment there. So I just want to commend you on that.
Well, it might
well.
drive my friends and family nuts.
And
So thank you for that.
not a problem. And anyone who would like to learn more about our conference, please visit our conference website, www.albertacrimeprevention.com. And with that, I'll bid you a good day. Get out and enjoy this wonderful weather that we have. And we'll see you in May. Thanks again, Ryan. Thank you.
Cheers.